Hey everyone, and welcome to Geometric Advanced Stock Analytics, and today we are looking at Tesla. So a quick disclaimer before I get started, I'm not a financial advisor and nothing here is financial advice. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. However, if you do like deep dive analytics and dashboards, like the one you're going to see today, please like this video and hit the subscribe button, because I think this tool is really useful and can help you in your investing journey. All right, so let's get started. So I am constantly tweaking and adjusting and hopefully improving this dashboard that I'm presenting here on YouTube. Right now, for the last video, I think it's just within the last video, I've added a dashboard summary. So this is a simplified overview of what the more detailed grayometric dashboard is saying on the next tab down here. So it's more like a text summary. You'll see we have the price of Tesla here, but everything else is kind of like summarizing what the metric is telling us, or what the other dashboard is telling us in the hopefully easier to understand words if you're not the type of person who likes looking at a bunch of stats. So let me get my pen going here and let's get started. So as you can see up here, we're looking at Tesla. It's currently trading at 434.43. We're in an active trading session now, so that price may update now and then. We shall see. It's an automobiles and auto parts industry. I know there's debate about that. Maybe it's actually a data industry. But right now, this is where it's classified. I don't write this in. I just take this information from how the stock is populated in Excel. So the first question that we are asking here is, has this stock outperformed its threshold? And recent data shows that this stock has outperformed its threshold and it's strengthening. If you've watched other videos, you know that I compare two periods with the same metrics to see how a stock is behaving. So the top line here is basically an auto-generated sentence based on the most recent period, and then this sentence is based on how that most recent period compares to the previous defined period. Is this stock volatile? Recent data shows that this stock experiences volatility, this is Tesla, no doubt, and is more volatile than it used to be. Is this stock streaky? So this you'll see on my next page, on my more detailed dashboard. This is really referencing 5-day streaks, whether they're 5-day winning streaks or 5-day losing streaks, and how the number of each of those compare to each other. So recent data shows this stock has had more winning streaks than losing streaks, and has been getting worse. So it's had more 5-day winning streaks than losing streaks, but the amount more has decreased. And get rid of that. Is this stock expensive? So what I'm doing here, I'm basically comparing the price over earnings ratio average for the industry with the price over earnings ratio for Tesla. It's just a simple comparison here. And recent data shows that this stock is expensive compared to its industry average. At the top, I'm going to talk about trend quality, and trend trajectory. So what's happening here is we'll get into the details of how I come up with these words in the more detailed dashboard, but currently this Tesla's current trend quality is low and the trend trajectory is improving. That's a hard word to say on video on command, but it is what it is. And it is the comparison of these two that feed into my overall 4-tiered rating structure that I have here. So given these two, the low trend quality but an improving trend trajectory, it is assigned a neutral trend profile rating. My strong trend is the strongest, moderate is number 2, neutral is 3, and weak is number 4. Let's get all of these out of here. And that's the summary dashboard. So let's dive in. Okay, let me escape out of here. There's my arrow. And let's dive into the more detailed dashboard here. So let's zoom in up here in the top. And so the first thing, eventually I'm going to be selling this dashboard for use. It may change quite a bit before then, but I've designed it so there's only 3 places where the user would input information. So first, they would choose the stock up here. We've chosen Tesla. There's over 5,000 tickers I've programmed in here into my drop-down menu. And then the user will pick the start and end date for period 1. I've chosen January 3rd, 2022, and then the end date of November 7th, 2024, and then period 2 automatically auto-populates from the end of period 1 to the most recent trading date. All right, so the first stat we're going to look at here is the threshold outperformance index. That basically compares over this period how often the stock actually won with the threshold win percentage needed to break even. So that's calculated by looking at the size of the wins when the stock wins and the size of the losses when the stock loses. And so based on those two numbers, you can figure out how much the stock needed to win to break even, or to have just that positive, slightly positive profile. And then you compare those two numbers to get the performance index right here. So 51.6 divided by 51.2, that's 1.01. And that same stat is looked at for period 2. You can see a 50.1% actual win, 46.7 needed to have a positive trend. Stability score is next. So basically, I'm looking at the number of days that had above 3% change and below a negative 3% change. So 12.4% of the days were above, 12.4% were below. So you take those two numbers away from 100, and then you'd get 0.75 stability score right here. Do the same thing with the most recent period. 17.1% of the days are above 3%, 13.2% are below negative 3%. Take the sum of those 2 days away from 100%, and you're left with a stability score of 0.7. All right, let's zoom out of here. I'm going to zoom in a slightly different place here. There. So now we're up to our positive trend persistence index. This is where I'm looking at 5-day winning streaks and 5-day losing streaks and counting them in the period as defined up above. So in period 1, Tesla had 12 5-day winning streaks and 10 5-day losing streaks. So of those 22 5-day streaks, 55% are positive winning streaks, and we changed that to a score of 0.55. Looking at the same thing for the most recent period, 8 5-day winning streaks, 7 5-day losing streaks, giving us a positive trend persistence index of 0.53. Then we get to our trend quality index here. So basically, this stat right here, we're going to have to dive into my chart up above. So let's remember the score of 0.63 right here. I'm going to escape out of here, and we're going to zoom into my chart right here. And so what's happening on this chart is I'm taking my threshold outperformance index that I did over here. You can see that was the first thing I compared, or I looked at, examined on this spreadsheet where it gave us the 1.01 value. That was an average over the whole period. So instead of doing an average for the whole period, on this chart I do a 51-day rolling average during period 1. And then I plot how that threshold outperformance index stat changes over time. And you can see here, sometimes above 1, sometimes below. There's a lot of variability in the stat. And then you can see how it behaves over time there. So I plot that index over time, and then I look at the standard deviation of all this data, and I can use those two numbers to come up with a score. So basically it's like this. The model, I got it written here. So the model uses trend line. I have this trend line that let me just clean it up a bit while I go through this. The model has a trend line that I've assigned to this data, just with the simple Excel add trend line function. And then with that trend line, taking the latest point on that trend line and the standard deviation of the data, all the data on this chart, I'm able to gauge how stable or fragile that current trend profile is. So right now, it gave us a score of 0.63. So that reading suggests a neutral confidence in the persistence of this current trend profile. That's basically it. That's basically it. We're looking at the trend. We take into this account the standard deviation. We know that when we calculate our threshold outperformance index, we want to get a score above 1. And we see that this data is behaving a certain way. And so when we incorporate, or when we look at the standard deviation and this trend line, we can establish how stable or fragile the trend is. And right now we have a neutral confidence in the persistence of the current trend profile. All right, let's get out of here and let's zoom in again. You see, that was period 1, and then we did the same thing for period 2. It's just we have our trend line, we've got our data. So looking at where the trend line's pointing now and understanding the standard deviation, we can gauge how stable or fragile that current trend profile is. And obviously we're looking at values above 1 as desirable. And so right now, this reading suggests that we have a neutral confidence in the persistence of this current trend profile. All right, and let's zoom in now to these next charts. I have a few more charts to go through. On these charts here, I'm looking at 2 things. I'm looking at the win percentage, so just basically how often the stock is going up versus how often it goes down, and that's in the blue. And then in the orange, I'm looking at the size of the ups and the size of the downs, both of those over a 51-day rolling average. And we can see as we plot the winning percentage, it's pretty much a straight line across here, just above 50%. Obviously, a lot of variability in that 51-day rolling average. And then for our up over down, the desire is to be above 100%, so your up days are bigger than your down days. So we can see that it's trending in a positive direction here, but obviously a lot of variability in that as well. Get out of here, and then we'll zoom out, and then we'll zoom in right here, and we look at the same stats for period 2. We see the winning percentage has a positive trend. It looks like it ending around 60% here in our most recent data, but the size of the ups over the size of the downs have been trending downward. So the downs have been increasing in size versus the size of the ups. So it's going down. It's still, this is the threshold you want to be above. So it's been coming down towards the threshold, but as long as it stays above it, you like to see that. You like to see the up days bigger than the down days. So let's get out of here, and we're going to scroll down a bit. A couple more charts to look at, and let's zoom in. We've got our RSI. So basically, this is a momentum trading metric where you can you can calculate if perhaps the stock is oversold or if perhaps the stock is overbought, and that may or may not be indicative of a correction of some sort. This was what it was for period 1, and if we escape out of there and then we zoom in for period 2, you can see the same stat here, and the most recent stat is right in the middle, so not indicating a potential oversold or overbought in a situation. All right, let's escape out of here, and then finally, I won't zoom in, but this is our price per share. Tesla's always had a lot of variability. You can see that. Overall, it trended down during period 1, and then overall, it trended up in period 2 so far. All right, let's escape out of here, and we'll zoom up a couple more things to look at. Let's get my pen. Price over earnings for Tesla is 302.2, very high compared to the automobile industry. Itself, Tesla, there's a lot more to it than that. A lot of interest in Tesla as a stock. It's one of the most probably popular or researched or talked about stocks on the stock market. So that's where the indication on the summary page came, saying that it was an expensive stock for its industry. Take that as you will. Let's clear that away. We can see that the market cap is huge here. This is another big company, and the annual rate of return for Tesla, so that's from the first date of period 1 to the last date of period 2, is 2.3%. Now, at the very top, we can see this neutral trend profile rating, and that's basically, whoops, I always do this. Let's escape out of here and scroll up. So a neutral trend profile it's basically, let me get my pen back again. It's basically looking at these two numbers right here. So it's the size, it's the size of the trend quality index for period 2. So, and then it's the improvement or, I don't know, worsening compared to period 1. Does it have a high quality trend or a strong profile in period 2, strong, weak, moderate, whatever it is, and how has it changed since period 1? So we see that both of these are neutral. It is improving slightly, but it's still in the neutral category, so that's why it gets the neutral trend profile rating. All right, so let's escape out of here. That's basically all I have for you today. In the near future, I don't know, near future or distant future, at some point in the future, I'm hoping to sell this dashboard online for people for personal use. So I'm very interested to hear any feedback in the comments about what you find useful, what could be improved, and what is maybe a bit confusing to understand and needs a little more clarity. If I ever hope to sell this online, it has to have value. It has to add value to you, the investor. So please don't hold back any of your feedback. And just to wrap up, everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not financial advice, and I am not a licensed financial advisor. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making any investment decisions. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next time.